A story broke a couple of weeks ago about a North Carolina pastor, David McGee, who was arrested on August 20th in that flashing neon city of sin, Las Vegas. He was staying at the Strat Hotel Casino and Tower and ended up getting arrested on gun and drug charges. Whoopsie. I'll bet that wasn't on his to-do list for the day. According to David, he was in Las Vegas to rescue his 36-year-old daughter, who is homeless, an addict, and possibly living in the flood control tunnels. Now, I'm not saying that David is dumb, but according to more than one article, he's the one who called the police to come to his hotel room because he needed them to investigate a piece of missing property. I'm going to bet he regrets that decision. When the police got to his room, David informed them that he had a gun in his guitar case. Hotel staff let the police know that they'd already warned him about their firearms policy after he'd reportedly taken a shotgun to his hotel room. But he didn't tell the police about every weapon in his room. No worries, though, because when police searched his room, they found them all, which included an AR-15 with a scope. Well, it seems like Dave was a bit excessive with his personal protection. He also had body armor, multiple knives, 2 baggies of purported weed, and another purported drug that starts with an F and ends in fentanyl, in both pill and powder form. Well, Dave does seem to enjoy a good time. He allegedly told police that he'd spent $1,000 on the fen, and that he used it and was going to give some to his daughter. I don't know if it's because she's an addict, or if he was going to sedate her in order to get her back home, or maybe that's just the way that David tells people he loves that he's missed them. It's not quite the same as saying I miss you with a sappy Hallmark card, but whatever works for Dave, I guess. If you're wondering how David was able to smuggle all this past airport security, he didn't have to. He took a private jet to Vegas, because if you can't go in style, why go at all? Besides, if it was his parishioners who paid for Dave's jet, they'd be upset if he was just letting it sit unused in a hangar somewhere. And if they didn't buy the jet for carrying weapons and illegal drugs, what did they even buy it for? David was released from jail because prosecutors asked for additional time to file a criminal complaint. I'm not sure what they needed more time for. Maybe there was more to it than what was reported. Or maybe they were fighting over who got to lose the baggies they found him with. That was just a joke, prosecutor people. I don't really think you stole Dave's treat bags. I had never heard about David before reading the article about his arrest, but I don't trust him, and here's one of the reasons why. This is the photo that David uses on social media, but if you look at recent videos he's released, here's what he actually looks like now. Were the photos he uses for social media taken before social media was even a thing? And this isn't just a case of Dave posting a pic years ago and just forgetting about it. He posted the younger pic of himself in 2021 on one of his social media accounts, and he had also posted it in 2014. I refuse to believe that there are only 10 years between the photo and his current videos. According to land records, Dave lives with his wife in an 8,000 square foot house. Well, that is downright spacious, especially for 2 people. Maybe they have 40 dogs or cats or an entire flock of parakeets. But how did David get to where he is today? He was born in Greensboro, North Carolina in 1963. He was born deaf and mute and had 9 surgeries as a child to reverse both. In a 1994 Greensboro News and Record article, Dave claims that he started using weed by the ripe old age of 10, was playing in bands by the time he was 14, and using coke by the age of 15. He attended Southeast Guilford High School in Greensboro and dropped out before graduating. He moved to live with an aunt in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, played in bands, and lived the rock and roll lifestyle, I guess. According to David, he played with some famous musicians, such as John Bon Jovi, Jimmy Buffett, Eddie Rabbitt, and Steve Winwood. The only validation I could find of that was on Dave's own websites, though. Maybe he meant that he played along with them when he heard their songs on the radio. In 1988, he was arrested for possession of the devil's lettuce in Florida, and sometime in between high school and then, he had married Nora Hooker, and they had their first child, Ashley, in April of 1988. and this is the daughter that he would be looking for 36 years later. At the same time, he quit playing in bands, stopped using drugs, and stopped drinking, according to himself. By 1994, David was playing music again, but this time, instead of playing in bars, he was playing in churches and for youth groups. In 2001, David and Nora began having Bible studies in their house. The attendance numbers grew enough that in 2002 they started their church, Calvary Chapel. Calvary Chapel is an association of churches across the country. The association doesn't govern the individual churches, but if the church fails to follow their guidelines, they can be removed as members. Calvary follows what they call a Moses model of church government, and it basically means that the pastor's the big cheese and makes the rules, and the board members and elders are only there in support roles. So David had full say on what happened in his church. In 2010, the church purchased an 80,000 square foot building in Kernersville, North Carolina. Weighing in at 26,481 people, Kernersville is the largest suburb of Winston-Salem and is home to an auto museum, Triad Park, and more than one Holiday Inn Express. I'm not sure why the church needed such a large building. Maybe it was for the rest of the zoo that wouldn't fit in the McGee's house. With the move came a new name for the church, the Bridge. I'm unsure if the church lost its membership with Calvary or if David cut those ties. In 2015, David faced criticism when he disfellowshipped 2 couples from the church and did so via a Facebook post. One of the couples hinted that they were disfellowshipped because they'd stopped tithing. David said it was because they were big doo-doo heads. Not really. He said they were lying and causing discord. The Bridge Church was shuttered in 2023 for reasons that I don't know of yet, but Dave said it was because the ministry had grown so large, a building couldn't contain it. I think he meant that more figuratively, and I'm sure closing the doors had nothing to do with him selling the property for $5.5 million. I mean, who needs a stinking building when you can get that kind of cash for it, right? David has maintained an online presence and has his own radio show, Cross the Bridge. 3 days before his arrest in Las Vegas, David posted a video on his radio show's Facebook page. And in the video, he's talking about how he's going to Vegas to rescue his daughter, and that if anyone got in his way, he was going to lay hands on them. And he was not talking about healing hands. He said that the Bible says you should lay hands on people suddenly, which I guess he translates to, pummel the dang skippy out of them. He also asked for prayers that when he did lay hands, it wouldn't be fatal. What the heckity hoot and holler, Dave? I understand a father wanting to rescue his daughter from whatever hell she might be living, but you can't threaten to harm people who get in your way and then show up with weapons and illegal drugs. It's just not how it's done in polite or even sane society. Someone made a post on one of Dave's Facebook pages insisting that the bad news they might have heard, meaning his adventures in Vegas, wasn't what it sounded like. Quote, "You may have read and or heard some disturbing news recently. Please understand that there is much incorrect, misleading, and incomplete information and implications in what is being reported. The truth will all come out in due season." End quote. Well, isn't that optimistic? I can't wait for the due season, whenever that will be. While I'm waiting for that, Dave is waiting to hear from the Clark County prosecutor, and in the meantime, I'll be seeing what else can be discovered about him. I get the feeling there's going to be a whole lot more wackadoodle coming down the drain pipe with this one. David McGee is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Thanks for watching. I'll be back soon.